Tonight, before you go to sleep, try imagining something. Turn off the heater. Open every window. Throw away your blanket. Now imagine the temperature keeps falling. 0 degrees, -10, -20. The cold slips into your room, into your clothes, into your bones. You probably wouldn't make it until morning. And yet for tens of thousands of years, human beings survived winters far colder than that. No houses, no central heating, no sleeping bags, no weather forecasts, no emergency services. Just darkness, snow, and a cold so deadly it could kill without making a sound. So why didn't ancient humans freeze to death? The answer seems obvious. Fire. But that's where the mystery begins. Because even with fire, they still should have frozen. You wake up in the middle of the night. Something is wrong. The fire is dying. The orange glow that protected your family is shrinking into a handful of weak embers. Outside, the wind howls across the frozen landscape. Snow blows through the darkness. The temperature is dropping fast. You can feel it. Every breath burns your lungs. Your fingers ache. Your feet have gone numb. And the nearest source of fresh firewood is somewhere beyond the darkness. Somewhere beyond the reach of the firelight. Somewhere you really don't want to go. Because winter isn't the only thing waiting out there. Predators are hungry too. For ancient humans, this wasn't a rare emergency. This was life. Every single winter. One mistake, one storm, one night without enough fuel, and everything could be over by sunrise. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If staying warm was this difficult, how did our ancestors survive long enough to spread across some of the coldest places on Earth? For years, archaeologists struggled with this mystery. Then they discovered something surprising. Ancient humans weren't surviving winter because they were physically tougher than us. In fact, in many ways, they had the same bodies we do, the same skin, the same vulnerability to cold, the same risk of hypothermia. The difference was not what they were. The difference was what they learned. And that lesson may have started with one of the most important discoveries in human history. Picture an Ice Age evening. The sun disappears. Almost instantly, the world changes. Temperatures plunge. Shadows stretch across the snow. The landscape becomes silent. Then someone kneels beside a fire. A spark catches. A flame appears. And suddenly, the darkness retreats. Today, fire feels ordinary. Back then, it was almost magical. Warmth, light, protection, hope. Researchers have found evidence that human ancestors were controlling fire hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before cities, long before farming, long before civilization itself. But here's what many people don't realize. A campfire is a terrible heater. Stand too close and you burn. Move a few steps away and you freeze. A gust of wind can steal much of its warmth. A lack of fuel can kill it completely. So if fire wasn't enough, why do archaeologists consider it one of humanity's greatest survival tools? Because the real power of fire wasn't simply heat. It changed human behavior. It brought people together, and that may have saved more lives than the flames themselves. Imagine a freezing winter night. A lone person sits beside a fire. Now imagine 10 people sitting beside that same fire. The difference is enormous. More eyes watching for danger. More people collecting fuel. More hands maintaining the flames. More bodies producing heat. Ancient humans discovered something that sounds simple, but may have changed our species forever. Winter is easier to survive together. And evidence from prehistoric camps suggests that people repeatedly gathered around shared hearths, creating social centers that offered warmth, safety, and cooperation. But even that wasn't enough to explain the biggest mystery, because some human groups pushed into environments so cold that even large fires should not have been sufficient. Places where winter temperatures could plunge far below freezing. Places where exposed skin could become dangerous in minutes. Places where survival itself seems almost impossible. So what secret were they carrying with them? The answer wasn't in the fire. It was on their bodies. And its discovery would allow humans to walk into lands that should have belonged only to ice. Imagine bringing down a reindeer after a successful hunt. Most people see food. Ancient humans saw something else. A portable shelter, a second skin, a way to survive another winter. For decades, archaeologists have uncovered stone scrapers, hide-working tools, and later something even more remarkable. Bone needles. Small, delicate, almost modern-looking. At first glance, they seem insignificant. But these tiny objects may have changed human history. Because a loose animal hide can keep you warm. A fitted garment can keep you alive. And as winters became harsher, ancient humans began turning animal skins into something far more sophisticated than simple coverings. They were creating technology you could wear. And what happened next allowed humans to survive conditions that should have killed them. But there was another danger hiding in the cold. A danger far deadlier than snow, wind, or even predators. A danger that fooled its victims into thinking they were safe. And ancient humans would learn about it the hard way. That danger was the cold itself. Not the pain, not the shivering, the silence. Because the most dangerous stage of freezing doesn't look dangerous at all. Imagine waking up before dawn. The fire has almost gone out. The shelter is colder than it was when you fell asleep. Your hands barely work, but then something strange happens. The cold seems to fade. The pain disappears. You begin to feel warm, comfortable even. That sounds like good news. It isn't. Modern doctors know this as one of the terrifying effects of severe hypothermia. As the body begins losing its battle against the cold, victims can become confused. Some stop making rational decisions. Some don't even realize they are dying. Ancient humans didn't know the science, but they knew the outcome. Every winter taught brutal lessons. The cold wasn't just trying to kill you, it was trying to trick you. And for thousands of years, survival depended on learning those lessons faster than winter could teach them, which is why staying alive required far more than fire and clothing. It required an entire survival system. As darkness settles over the landscape, nobody sleeps alone. Children are pulled toward the center. Adults form a protective circle around them. Animal hides cover everyone. Bodies press together. Heartbeats create warmth. Breathing fills the shelter. Outside, the wind screams across the frozen ground. Inside, another battle is taking place, a battle to keep heat from escaping. To modern people, sleeping close together might sound uncomfortable. To ancient humans, it could mean the difference between seeing another sunrise or never waking up again. And then there were the shelters themselves. Many people imagine Ice Age humans wandering endlessly across open snowfields. But archaeologists have uncovered evidence of something much smarter. Again and again, humans chose places that worked with nature rather than against it. Rock overhangs, caves, natural windbreaks, locations that trapped warmth and blocked freezing winds. Some groups even built structures using animal hides, wood, and available materials to create protected spaces within hostile environments. They weren't simply enduring winter. They were engineering survival. But perhaps the most surprising discovery of all had nothing to do with shelters, or clothing, or fire. It had to do with people. Imagine a child begins crying in the middle of the night. The temperature keeps falling. The firewood pile is almost gone. The storm outside is growing stronger. Everyone knows what that means. Tomorrow will be harder. Food will be harder to find. Fuel will be harder to gather. Every resource matters. Then an older woman removes one of her own hides. Quietly, she wraps it around the child. No speeches, no heroics, no reward. Just a simple decision. She will spend the rest of the night colder. The child will spend it warmer. We don't know her name. We never will. But thousands of decisions like that helped our species survive. Because one of humanity's greatest winter adaptations wasn't physical at all. It was cooperation. Wolves survive in packs. Humans survive in communities. A single person facing an Ice Age winter had terrible odds. A group sharing knowledge, labor, food, shelter, and warmth became something much stronger. This may be one of the reasons our ancestors succeeded where many other human species disappeared. Not because they were the strongest, but because they worked together better. And that changes the entire story. For most animals, survival comes from biology. Thicker fur, larger bodies, seasonal migration. Humans chose a different path. When winter became colder, we didn't wait for evolution. We adapted. We improved clothing. We mastered fire. We shared knowledge. Each generation inherited survival tricks from the one before it. A child who learned how to prepare hides became an adult who could teach others. A successful shelter design spread through a group. A better way to keep a fire burning survived long after its inventor was gone. Knowledge became a survival tool. And unlike fur or muscle, knowledge could improve within a single lifetime. That was humanity's secret weapon. Not strength, not speed, not size. Ideas. Which brings us back to the original question. Why didn't ancient humans freeze to death? Because they refused to face winter alone, because they transformed animal hides into clothing, because they turned caves into homes, because they carried fire into the darkness, because they shared what they learned, and because every generation passed those lessons to the next. Winter kept changing, so did they, again and again and again, until eventually humans spread across continents, crossed frozen landscapes, and survived environments that should have been impossible. The strange thing is that when we picture ancient humans, we often imagine people completely different from us, primitive, simple, barely surviving. But on a freezing winter night, they probably felt many of the same things you would feel. Fear, exhaustion, relief when the fire finally caught, comfort from being close to family, hope when morning arrived. The difference is that they faced those feelings without the protections we take for granted, and yet they endured, not for a few years, not for a few centuries, for thousands upon thousands of winters. So tonight, when you pull a blanket over your shoulders and shut the cold outside, remember this: you are not descended from the strongest humans. You are descended from the people who solved winter, the people who learned how to hold fire in their hands, how to turn animal skins into warmth, how to build shelter where none existed, how to keep each other alive through one more freezing night. Because every person who failed disappeared from the story, and every person who succeeded became part of yours. The warmth you feel tonight is not just modern comfort. It is the final chapter of a survival story that began tens of thousands of years ago. And somewhere deep inside every warm room, every blanket, and every winter coat, an Ice Age survivor is still keeping you warm.